Welcome to Recovery Comes Home Radio, your go-to podcast for all things related to addiction recovery. Whether you are an individual in recovery, a concerned loved one, or a dedicated professional, this podcast is tailored just for you. Here we are all about empowering you with the tools, insights, and inspiration you need to move forward. So grab your headphones, tune in, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Recovery Comes Home Radio. Today, I have Pamela O'Neill with me. She is a former journalist and social worker who has dealt with mental health issues both personally and professionally. Through her calling as a mental health coach, she facilitates open communication about the health of the mind and is building a community that will work together to end its stigma. She will guide you in the discovery of your courage to speak up about any issue you feel afraid, anxious, or unclear about addressing. Pamela believes in each person's ability to regain their confidence, to be healthy, and to thrive. While at home in Canada, she hopes to reach a global audience with her services. Well, welcome, Pamela, to our family here at Recovery Comes Home Radio.
Yes, thanks so much, Adrienne, for having me.
It's my pleasure. So we were talking a little bit before the recording. What can you tell me as a mental health advocate, mental health worker? What do you see as the link between addiction and mental health?
Sure. So since the pandemic, we've had an increase in addiction. A lot of people had a difficult time during then they turned a lot to drugs and alcohol in order to cope. So we're seeing a lot of the side effects from that now and having to deal with the repercussions, so that's what I wrote my book about. So I wrote a book about speaking up about the mental health crisis.
What's the name of your book?
Speaking up about a mental health crisis.
Nice.
So I have it here.
Yeah, hold it up. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I love that, the ending the stigma, because it's the same thing with addiction. There's such a stigma around it, and it's like mental health too. We need we need a reckoning, and shouting it from the rooftops that people are not well. They might be pretending really well that we went back to normal, but number one, that's not possible. We can't go back to where we were because we're not the same people anymore.
no, we're not. And we're collectively, we're struggling. We need to really have each other's backs and, be very supportive of each other right now. Because in my work and in my personal life, even I'm seeing just so many people who are having a difficult time. And we just really need to build each other up and uplift as opposed to tearing each other down and, stigmatizing people for their mental health.
And what would you say is the majority of the people that you're seeing right now? Is it anxiety? Is it depression? Is it bipolar?
Mostly drugs, alcohol, and suicide. I have, personally, I've dealt with, having depression, and it was during the pandemic, and I had to really work hard to get through that. And, but fortunately, I was able to, find help and be able to work through it. Some people don't, because they're afraid to say anything. And so that it ends up escalating and becoming more of an issue. I've had friends who have just said, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to. There's no silver bullet. There's no easy fix. Even with our experience with addiction. So 5 years ago, we saw primary addiction. So their primary problem was they had an addictive substance or behavior, but then they were having mental health issues as a result of the drug use, right? Paranoia, hearing voices, whatever. Now we see its primary mental health, so schizoaffective, bipolar, anxiety, depression, secondary addiction. So they're trying to mask their symptoms with alcohol or drugs or problem behaviors. And, overnight, the liquor stores became essential businesses. And that was a policy decision made at the highest levels, because if we had everybody dry, the next morning they'd wake up and need to go to the hospital for withdrawals, and they needed the beds for COVID. So it was absolutely 100% a national policy decision made to keep the beds open for people who needed them, and keep also as a drug to kind of keep us, calm down. And all right, well, what used to be a couple of nights out with the girls has turned into a box of wine a day at the house. And then it's
And
time
that's
to
what
go back to
people,
work.
yeah, people don't realize that, alcohol is not a pick me up, once you
No,
are,
it's not.
it can be a downer, and it's like there's those categories of drugs that and it would fall into that category of, yeah, it's a depressant. It's not some because that you do go through the withdrawals and the hangovers, people experience that, then
Absolutely.
so and then that's what makes them want to drink more, and yeah, it can quickly become an issue. So
It's funny that sometimes people will say things like, well, I've heard drinking one drink a day is good for you. No, actually, so what the CDC says is one drink for women is the maximum per day, 2 drinks for men. So that's something that's a carcinogen. And if you must, you shouldn't do more than one a day. And that's not reflective of what the American population is doing right now.
no, we're
Numbing,
yeah,
ducking,
we're
running,
turning to it.
hiding. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's true. Like it does become a financial issue,
Yes.
when what you're turning to, and that's another way that it can snowball is, you're starting to, yeah, go into debt more
Are
and
you going
more.
to shop every time you don't feel good?
Yeah.
And not only are you going into debt, but your husband's talking about leaving you because he's already cut up your credit cards before and you're doing it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
There's
people don't,
so many effects.
yeah, so many effects, but people don't see that that's also an addiction.
Right.
Anything to escape your mood and mind that's not like natural. Now, some shopping retail therapy is all right. When it becomes an addiction is when you have negative consequences and you still can't stop.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
now you spoke a little bit earlier about you have some addiction in your family.
Yeah, so I do have on my mother's side, my grandfather. He had issues with drinking, and well, his son has schizophrenia, so my mom's brother. And so, yeah, there's a lot of mental health issues on that side of my family that we really had to work hard to, overcome, because my mom's a primary caregiver.
Yep.
Now that my uncle is, he's in a care home now. But prior to that, she was his primary caregiver. So yeah, like I've seen, like she could have turned to, handling it in a negative way as well. But she's more of a solutions, like, I, let's
Yeah.
treat this with
Yeah. Focus more
love.
on the solution than the problem.
Yeah. So I think
That's
that's what
really
people,
good. I mean, that's good because a lot of caregivers go through burnout and compassion fatigue. And then they're just so exasperated that they're like, well, screw it, I'll just have something to drink and numb out for a few hours. And
yeah,
that for some people, that's fine. They can do that intermittently. For other people, they take the first drink and then they can't stop, or the first drug, or the first problem behavior. It's all the same brain chemistry going on.
yeah. And for her, a lot of it is her faith, that
Mhm.
helps her. And so, yeah, to be able to find that something that you can, gives you hope and that gives you a way to move forward. Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah, faith is a good one to reach for. Music is always a good one for me to change my mood and my mind without a substance.
Yes.
I have a journaling practice that I journal to my grandmother almost every day. I have for years. Because I miss her, but it keeps me sane. You know, there's a meditation, there's a prayer, there's a lot of other things that you can reach for that are healthy coping mechanisms, because it is hard to be a caregiver. We do have complicated histories. We're complex creatures, right? I mean, it was funny. I was talking to my friend about, he wrote a paper in college about the human animal. And if humans were an exhibit in the zoo, what would we need? Would we need food? Yes. Well, what kind of food? Would we need water? What kind of water? Would we need love? Yes. Would we need companionship? Yes. Would we need interaction? Yes. All these things, and they just keep piling on. And I would say that even if you compile the list of the perfect things that every human needed to be successful, I don't think it would ever work in a zoo, because you're not free.
Well, you know what? This is a perfect segue for what I wanted to share, a part of my book, because we're
Oh,
talking about
cool.
courage. We're talking about courage this month, right?
Yep.
That's the theme of your show.
Yep.
Yeah. So I included a chapter on courage in my book. It's chapter 2. The first chapter is about being silent and alone, because usually that's how we begin, right? We feel alone.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, courage to me is, well, Brene Brown, she has
Yep.
a quote, and it's, courage is not staying quiet about things that make us uncomfortable. So a lot of times we do have to talk about those things just to, get them out and, yeah, start to be able to share.
Do you know how
And
many people have told me to stop talking about this? A
no,
lot.
why? No,
I
never
don't
stop
know.
talking about this.
I don't
Yeah,
know. Because they
no.
don't want to, I don't know. I'm not going
Mm.
to stop though.
No, it's no, we need to talk about these things. It's the difficult things
Yeah.
that we need to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, So I say, so if it's okay, I'll read you
Yeah,
a
that's
little.
perfect.
Okay. So courage is synonymous with fighting one's way through obstacles that make you afraid. It is both having the strength to face pain or grief and the ability to do something that frightens you. Synonyms are bravery, fearlessness, and heroism. It's to persevere despite challenges. What must change to find courage? To find the strength to face what frightens you, you are what needs to change, and something has to inspire you to do so within your environment. To find the courage to write this book, I had to transition from a state of fear and lack to being and abundance. I had to build my confidence in my abilities and create an environment that would allow the space for me to thrive. A part of that process was identifying what rejuvenated me and made me feel more self-assured, as well as removing what was draining my energy and stunting my growth. The transformation happens when something gets interjected that serves as a catalyst for that change. There is something that makes us realize what is possible and causes a shift in belief from no, I can't to yes, I can. This might be the influence of a person, a life-altering experience, an epiphany, or other. Whatever the case, we are moved from a state of fear and doubt to one of possibility and hope.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. It's
Yeah.
all true. And you know what? It reminds me, so we have the ABCs of recovery. You said that the first chapter was alone,
Yeah, silent and alone.
silent and
Yeah.
alone. Okay. So the A is accept your situation and take action. Because it's only going to be in that moment in your innermost self that you have to admit you've got a problem too. And nobody else, if you're doing this for anybody else, it's not going to work. But if you're doing it for you and for a better future for yourself, it absolutely will work.
Yeah, that's what we always say is we can't convince other people, as much as you
Right.
want to, tell them, it can get better. They have to believe that for themselves. And so sometimes, showing them a way that it can be better, giving them examples of, many people who have, been in a difficult spot, but being able to, persevere.
Yeah, and so like acknowledging that there is a situation and then taking action on it, positive, healthy action like we were talking about earlier, then be brave enough to start over and over again until you get it right. And then cultivate a stellar support system around yourself. We are the product of the 5 people we hang around the most. I didn't believe that at first, and I do now. And I believe that, it's important to be on an equal playing field, at least energetically, with the person you're speaking with, and that's one thing that we find. People come in to us with vibrating very low. They have very little self-esteem because they haven't really done much esteemable acts. Right? How do you get self-esteem? You do things for yourself instead of letting other people do them for you. You do things that are esteemable. And then you get that internal, we always say we're in the make it available business. We make it available. I can't make you want it. I can't want it for you more than you want it for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so encouraging and, being that support system for somebody is really all that you can do sometimes, until, they feel that they want to take that next step. And sometimes that can take a while, but you hold this, you say hold the space for them to be able to, explore that themselves. And yeah.
Yeah, that's why, and it really is that simple, A, accept and act, B, be brave, and C, cultivate support. You have to have those things. And then it just makes things a lot easier, because in our 15 years experience, getting clean and sober or just stopping problem behaviors is really difficult for people. And, we need an open dialogue about, I know that the family's mad once they get to us, it's been like this, but it's really important in the beginning to have that support system in place because like we celebrate, you get a white key tag on your first day, right? Hang on one second.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you. Then you get a key tag at 30 days and 60 days and 90 days. Then there's a break until 6 months. And then there's a 6-month break till a year. And that's designed on purpose, right? You need that. You need in the beginning is when you are at most risk of going back to your old behavior. So you need that support, like attaboy, attaboy. And then at 6 months, you can kind of wait. Okay, I can wait 6 months to get my next key tag because I built the resilience and the fortitude to be able to withstand. I don't need that constant, what's the word I'm looking for? Gratification.
Right.
That in an addict's world, it's thought reaction. There's no time for the pause that Viktor Frankl talks about. The pause where you can make a different choice. And that's true for mental health as well, right?
Yeah, we definitely, it's, you want to give the time and the opportunity and, have things be, as forward moving as possible, right? So that you're helping them to see that, this is something that you're moving through and it's okay that you're going through it, like not making them feel as though like they've done something wrong or that they're a failure or that, that this is, that's yeah, they definitely don't need any of that. They just need the positivity. And
What would
yeah.
you say about because there's that first part where you get the diagnosis and then there's a lot of action around that. But then you could have, let's say you're 4 years or 5 years or 6 years and life starts hitting you. How can you keep going when you have mental health issues, when life gets real?
Yeah. So we need to be patient with ourselves, and there's always going to be ebbs and flows in life, where things will, not always be easy, and we have to, we might have some times where things are going really, really, really well for a while, and then something might happen again where we're challenged. But it's just being able to go back to, like you said, your resiliency,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, you know what, I've done it before. So it's called like a strength-based approach where you say, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, I've done these things before and I've been through that and I know I can do it now. And having that belief that you can get through it.
Yeah, and that's something that is really critical in our industry. It's funny because people will say things like, I might have another relapse in me, but I don't have another recovery left in me. Because
Mm,
it's that hard to get through the early days and the middle days until you can get to where you're comfortable in your own skin and you've got a routine down. Um, I think it's difficult, like we were talking about, for all of us as humans, and we aren't given a good education on how to deal with things that are uncomfortable. And
yeah,
it's okay to sit with uncomfortability.
yep, yeah,
It'll change.
you have
Everything
to.
changes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you sit with it. You can go, okay, I recognize what this is. I acknowledge you. Now I'm done with it.
Mhm.
Instead of like letting it get you off guard and ruining your whole day.
That's right. Yeah. No, that's a excellent way to put it. Just to
Perspective,
acknowledge
right?
it. To look at it and face it. And because we can't acknowledge, or we can't change what we don't acknowledge.
Right.
And so there has to be truth, and there has to be all of those things in order to be able to do anything. So I agree with that, what you said.
So
Mhm.
what would you say to somebody that's like, they've gotten on a medication regimen that seems to be working for them. But they're kind of in that middle ground and they can't just get over the hump. They've improved a great deal since they first started coming to you, but they're kind of hitting a plateau.
Yeah. Well, so medications, you have to be really careful with, because some, once you start, you can't get off. And sometimes the medical field doesn't tell you that, you know, that, this is going to be a lifelong thing that you have to take.
Right.
So I think, first of all, being very educated on what it is that you're being prescribed is important, to know how it's going to affect you in the long term. And then, if you are on medications, uh, like I try to approach things with a more holistic approach. Like
Mm.
I'm not a doctor, so I can't,
Right. Me either. We're not
advise.
diagnosing here.
Yeah,
Sure. We're
yeah,
not. Yeah. We don't diagnose,
yeah.
but
So
we
I
talk
can't.
about what we see.
Yeah. So, but for me, I've seen people be able to do it without medication,
Yep.
and um,
Cognitive
you know,
behavioral therapy works wonders.
yeah. So, so if we can try those things first,
Good
and then
advice.
add the medications if needed. That would be my advice.
Great. Well, we're coming almost to the end of our time together, but I wanted to ask you the question that I ask everyone at the end. If you could go back to that young Pamela, before you got into this field and before you saw what you've seen firsthand, what kind of life advice would you give to your younger self about getting through mental health challenges? or addiction issues or anything that might be out of balance?
Well, I was very young, I would say, when it started or when I became aware. I was probably about 5 or 6 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, just because it was so prevalent in my family and
Yep.
I, yeah. So I would say, you know, I'm gonna, go through a lot in life and, mental health has always been something, whether I realized it or not. I was always going through something with mental health. And so, when you want something to change, you have to be the change. And so that is sort of why I'm motivated so much because I don't want to see people suffering. I don't want to see people,
Mhm.
have to go through the things that, I've experienced or so, yeah, I would say
I
just,
think that's a lot of
be the
people's
change.
stories, right? Is yeah, be the change, but because you've been there yourself and you want to save somebody all those years. Yeah. And another thing is, what suggestions or words of encouragement would you give to the loved ones of someone who's going through mental health challenges?
Yeah, it's hard, right? It's not gonna, that's not easy either to see what happens and the road that they're on. Um, I know because, I tried to save, I guess, maybe some of my parents or my siblings from seeing some things that I went through. And sometimes people, yeah, they'll hide like what they're really experiencing. And so, yeah, just to be, just to be their support and have, love and caring and knowing that you can be a safe space for them. Um, it's just, showing your love in as many ways and as possible.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. This has just been a really great conversation, Pamela. I'm so excited to be able to interview you. Um, I'd love to have you back on because you've touched on a lot of issues. I think that we could go in different directions and go down those rabbit holes because there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, yeah, I would love that. Yeah,
That
it's
would be
it,
great.
it's very important the work that you're doing and bringing these issues up. And yeah, don't let anyone stop you or tell
Yeah.
you that you should. This is all about speaking up, and yeah, we're doing it together. So
And you're doing it too. That's what I was just going to say is we're doing it together. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see you later, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to Recovery Comes Home Radio. We hope that today's episode has provided you with valuable information and insights on the recovery process. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Keep seeking support, practicing self-care, and moving forward one step at a time. Until next time, stay strong, stay resilient, and stay humble. Hope lives here.